Okay, awesome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the April edition of the Scottish Power Platform User Group. Thank you all for coming along. We've got a real bumper pack lineup tonight, if you didn't already know that. So 8 speakers. So yeah, it's going to be chaos. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a mix of all things. So really looking forward to this one. So before we get into that, we just want to say a massive thank you to our sponsors, Adapt 365 and DigPack, for sponsoring this event. Without them, these events wouldn't be possible for the community. So massive thank you to our sponsors. Massive thank you to the organisers as well. Without, Charlie, Stuart and Rani, massive powerhouses, we wouldn't be able to get all of this put together. So a massive thank you to them too. And yeah, a massive thank you to our speakers as well. As I said, we've got 8 speakers, so pretty awesome. So we've got Ben Fetters, Sean Astrakhan, Sarah Jones, Simon Owen, Brian Archer, Bülent Altinsoy, Sharon Smith and Charles Sexton all speaking for us tonight. So massive thank you for all of you for coming along and agreeing to speak amongst all this chaos. So yeah, obviously, Ben, you're up first. I will hand over the reins to you, buddy, if that's okay.
Yeah, sounds great. Man, I haven't spoken in a while at anything, let alone a big meeting like this. So I told my daughter that I was doing something big and scary for work today, and she came up and gave me a hug and said, "Are you gonna be brave?" And I said, "I'll try." Oh man, but let me share my screen. Sweet. So I know I'm kind of I'm guessing a lot of people don't really know me, and I'm kind of meeting lots of you for the first time. I know I've talked to some of you through LinkedIn and everything, but um, I thought I'd take one quick minute to just go over a little bit about myself really quick to introduce myself. So I'm Ben Fetters. I live in the US in Utah, so I'm kind of by California and Las Vegas, I guess, is sort of close to us. But this is my sweet little family. I have 2 kids. One of them just played her first season of soccer or football, I should say. And anyway, so we have a good time. Life is good. I also love Legos as well, so I've created a little Lego version with AI. That's probably my favorite thing that AI has done for me is create a Lego version of myself. So, but today I wanted to talk quickly about doing form comments with JSON. So I know I don't have a ton of time because if you're new to JSON and kind of how it works inside of Power Apps, then it can be a little scary at first if you're trying to if you're not a pro developer and you're trying to get into more of these coding things. My background is actually not like a pro coder person. So when I first learned about JSON, it was kind of a strange thing. But it's really actually pretty simple and it can do some pretty awesome things inside of Power Apps and a lot of other places in the Power Platform, right? But today I wanted to show an example of that with an application that I've built here. So hopefully, I'm kind of zoomed in here a little bit, but okay. So I'll hit play for a second. So this is a document approval application. It's one of the, it's all just example test fun data. That's why not everything's filled out, and there's probably a lot of strange fields and things that we've put in as testing always goes. But this is a basically just a document approval process. A document needs to get approved by various people. And during this process, the people like to add comments. So they might say, hey, I need you to go into the document and change such and such thing or whatever it is, right? And so here is, I'll just click on this first one. This is a basic little approval process. So I've got my steps for my my document approval process right here. And this first one's been completed. I'm on step 2. It's the first approval. Here's the approvers right here. And then I haven't done these steps yet, right? So here's the document I'm trying to approve. I can download it. I can click and open it inside of SharePoint, whatever I need to do. And then here are my comments. So these comments right now are just inside of a gallery. And if I want to add another comment, I can say, so I've got, here's a comment. I love you, Ben. I put that in earlier today. So I'll just say, I love you too. My face. And click add comment, and another comment is added into our little comments section here. So the awesome part about this is I'm using JSON to actually store all of these comments. So when I am saving them, I'm not saving each comment as an individual item in another list, right? So I'm not using a comments list and then tying all those comments items to this document approval item. I'm actually saving all these comments inside of JSON and saving them inside of a multi-select field. And so it's such a helpful thing to be able to add basically a table of data inside of a multi-line text field, especially when there's kind of lots going on with this approval process. And it can be tricky to, if you start having lots of different tables and everything, right? So we didn't want to have another table to connect to, and we thought, okay, well, we're not going to have too many comments, and all these comments are for this individual item. And actually, right when we were building this, I think the JSON and parse JSON functions had recently come out in Power Apps, and so we were like, let's try it. Let's see what we can do, and it worked really well. So I'll kind of show you the back end of how it works. It's not too complicated, and then you can take this concept and apply it to lots of other things. So let me go and show the code here a little bit. And this, I was going to maybe get a simpler example here, but this one, when you add a comment, sometimes it needs to save the whole approval item. And so if you haven't saved the approval item yet, it needs to go and save it first and then add the comment anyways. But so that's why there's a whole other extra stuff in here, because the main comment piece really isn't that complicated. So when I click this button, the main thing that you have to worry about is just this part right here. And it's super easy. So all I have to do is treat these comments like and put them into a collection. Let me just grab a drink of water here so I don't keep coughing. So what I've done here is I've captured a few different fields to add into my comments collection. So I've added a comment just by the text that the user put in. I get the date and time that they clicked the button. I've got some information about the person. I've also got, and this is maybe a little more custom to this specific example, but I have the step that the person was on when they added the comment. So if this was on the third step in the approval process, right? And this is just that step name. So final approval or whatever it is. And then I needed to, this was a extra special scenario, but I needed to add the comment, the height of the text box, because it can expand and so on. So this was a little extra customized for this one, but this isn't really necessary to add the comment height necessarily. But the next thing that we do is when I actually need to save this collection of comments back to my data source, all I have to do is use a function called, I added my little code comments here. So I have a field called comments JSON. I like to add just the JSON part when so I just know that field is saving JSON data, and so other people know that as well. And all I have to do is say just the JSON function and put in my collection, and that is it. So when I save that I create this collection. When I save it back to the data source, I just wrap that collection of comments inside of the JSON function. And then if I look at my SharePoint list here, here's my comments JSON field. And here is all of the various JSON data inside of these different approvals. So it's kind of, I mean, it looks kind of messy from here, right? So it's a little tricky. You want to view it in the app, of course, right? Because it'd be kind of hard to read all this. But so here's all my comments getting saved in my my comments JSON field. And if I want to pull these back in, then let me show you how that works. And this is probably the most complicated part, is to then, when I click on an approval item, to then pull in those comments from the item I've selected. So let me show that here as well. Click on this little guy right here. And right here's where I have my comments. So I first, well, I don't really know why I clear the collection right here. I could probably take that out. But if there is something in the comments field, in the comments JSON, then I'm going to use the clear collect and get this collection comments going again. And then I use the parse JSON function. And the parse JSON is basically going to help the Power App understand that, hey, this isn't a text field, this is JSON. I need you to look at my comments JSON field as JSON data and treat it like JSON data. So treat it like a table of data instead of text. And I like to always add this little as JSON so I can be extra specific here. And then I use the for all function to essentially create the schema of my collection, my comments collection. So right here I have, this is really similar to when I added a new comment. I'm just now pulling in the comment data. So all the same fields are here. I have a comment, I have the date, I have the person, step number, step name, and so on. But this time when I use the parse JSON, I need to specify the field type that it is. So if I were to take out this text right here, it's probably gonna be a little mad at me. So I like to think of this when you're pulling in these different fields. I like to think of it as like taxes and the government. The government knows how much taxes you owe, but they're not going to tell you how much taxes you owe. They will tell you if you're wrong or right, right? So when I try to type in this field and say, hey, I want to pull in the comment field from my JSON data, it doesn't help me at all. So it doesn't know any of the field names or anything. So I have to manually make sure that I'm pulling in that right field. And so I just have to trust that I've saved this correctly and I'm pulling in the right field. And now I can pull in this JSON, the comment field from my JSON. It's not telling me right now, but this is technically an untyped object type of field. And so I'm not able to, Power Apps might get a little confused with what type of data is this. It does it okay, but I like to just, that's why you see I always add the date time value and the text. If it's a number, I use the value function. So I like to help Power Apps a little bit and say, hey, this field that I'm pulling in is a text field. And so now it understands, hey, I'm pulling in this JSON. I've got a field called comment, and this is going to be text. So then in my collection and when I'm displaying my comment and everything, I don't have any troubles. It can deal with the different data types really easily. And that is basically it. I don't know if I have any time left. I know that was kind of fast, and JSON is a little interesting. If you're new to it, there's definitely lots of resources to help understand JSON a little bit better, and videos that I'm sure dive into this a little bit more. But there you have it. I hope that was helpful. And again, this is really nice to be able to save data, lots of tables of data or items of data into a multi-line text field. I don't use it all the time, but definitely this is a good use case for it that I found, is saving comments in different approval processes. And that is it.
Thank you, Ben. That was awesome. I think we'll all agree. Some really good use cases there for Jason. So in the interest of time, we'll just hand straight over to our next speaker. Sean, do you want to take the wheel?
Yeah. Good to see everyone. Hello. I would love to see all of you. Your cameras, I would love that for them to be on. Right now I see Ben. He's huge. Is he supposed to be huge? Or is that like some weird setting?
Like,
is he spotlit?
Yeah.
If I turn off my camera, I can turn.
Ben, I want to be the star, not you.
Let's make you the star. Yeah, do that.
Oh, that's fun. Cool. Great to see everyone. This is awesome. All right, so I'm Sean. I train people to be solutions architects, and I only have 15 minutes, so let's keep going. I want to show you Azure AI Search. I love it because I found it's brought a lot of accuracy, transparency to anything I'm doing in AI. And really, the problem I like to solve is, raise your hand if you've used Copilot Studio. Or like, give me a thumbs up or something. Let me know if that's happening. Okay, a few of you. All right. Now, keep your hands up if Copilot Studio gave you the exact results you expected every single time. I'd be surprised how many of you have actually had that. So I've been trying to solve this problem alongside Bülent and Franco. We've all been kind of putting our heads together. And AI Search, I feel like, gets us closest to it. To really show this power, I want to compare a couple things here. So I have Copilot Studio talking to the standard out-of-the-box SQL connector. And right here, I have Azure AI Search talking to Copilot Studio. And if you're wondering what data I'm using, I just connected it to this database of vacation packages. So here I have skiing in the Alps, I have European tours, and I have the descriptions, all of this. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you a comparison of when we ask the same questions to the connector versus Azure AI Search. But I would love for you to take a guess. So here's what I want you to do in the chat. Type the letter S if you think when I ask this question of which hotel is for ski lovers, SQL connector is going to get it. And then type in A if you think that Azure AI Search is going to be able to understand this question. So type in S or A or both, just like I did in the chat. So please type that in there. All right. Somebody put in D. Oh, it's Hunter. God. All right. Dataverse, fun. We'll get to that one. All right. Wow. No one has faith in SQL connector. Well, I'm excited to debunk this mystery. So if we type it in, what we get is SQL connector nailed it. All of you haters. Let's try it again. It did a wonderful job. So this time I'm going to do which hotel offers skiing. So it's a little different. Which hotel offers skiing?
Might not be
Is someone
the best
talking
way
or
to
am I nuts?
communicate. You might want to pick up the phone.
Cool. So for this one, which hotel offers skiing? Let's try it again. Remember, the word skiing does not actually appear in the text. So here, to go ahead and type them in there, and let's see S or A or both. All right, I'm going to hit play. And what we got is SQL connector failed. Azure AI Search nailed it. Let's do it one more time. And this time I'm asking which hotel is called 47. Which hotel is called 47? Which one do you think is going to get it? S or A? Or both? So far, no one's. All right, I see where Charles is going. All right. Okay. Okay. Let's see it here. Very well done, Craig, Zoltan, and it skipped ahead. The few of you that thought it would get both of them, well, you're absolutely correct. In this case, which hotel is called 47? It totally nailed it. But then the last example is if we move on and ask it something like, which hotel has like a castle inside of it, it really starts to fall apart. It can't do it. My point is Azure AI Search is incredible and it solves this. But for us to actually be able to start using Azure AI Search, we need to understand how it works. So next point, this. If you have your data, like I showed you, and you ask it which hotels are near the sand, Azure AI Search has no idea what you're talking about. because Azure AI Search has no idea what any of this text is. AI Search deals with vectors. So what you need to do is you need to take your question, you need to send it to a text embedding model, and then it's going to send you back a vector representation of that text. So vectors are just numbers that take all of your words and then they put the right numbers appropriated with them, and then we can match on them. I'll give you another example. The next thing you need to do is once you have your question translated to vectors, you take all of your data, send it to the text embedding model, and it is going to send the numbers version of all of your text. Once I discovered this, I was like, oh my God, this is unstoppable. We can turn anything into AI and make it AI friendly. For instance, like take WhatsApp messages, take like photos, take whatever you want. All you need to do is generate some embeddings and you're good. I'll show you how this works in the background. If we hop into, cool. Right here, I'm in Azure OpenAI. And if I go to my deployment models, I have the ones you've probably seen before. I have GPT, and then I have text embedding 3 small. Watch this. If I go to the chat, let's remember these two. If I go to the chat and I want to talk to one of the models, here I can talk to like, hi, how are you? I can talk to the GPT model, but if you'll notice here, I don't have the text embedding model, text embedding 3. The reason I don't have this one appearing is because this one, its whole job is just to do this. It's not made for chatting. It's made for converting things to vectors. And then once we have all of these vectors together, it just does math in the background and it connects all of them. So let's actually see this running around in action. To set this up, I'm going to hop into Azure AI Search over here. All right. It's as simple as AI Search. There it is. And then you click into it. Cool. Next step, I hop in here and I click Import Data. I'm going to select a data source I already have. And you'll notice it gives you some very special powers you would never see in Copilot Studio. You could add certain enrichments, certain AI services. You can do things like, oh, do you want to just take the address and then maybe find out the exact geolocations of where that address is and do some really cool mapping? You could totally do that. Do you want to detect the language and maybe translate your text from English to Spanish? All of that is available. It has a lot of powerful additions you can work with. The next part is, once you have that, you have to build your indexer. We're going to come back to this in a second. You have to decide of all of your fields. If you notice, these are all my columns that I showed you earlier from here, all of these columns. You come in here and you're like, all right, which data do you want me to retrieve? And then which data do you want me to search on versus filter on? Right here, filterable, searchable, searchable, filterable. They're not the same. We're going to come back to those in a little bit. But let's go try, and I want to ask a volunteer. Josh, can you do me a favor?
Don't ever like the sound of this, but okay.
Okay, can you pronounce this word?
Face table.
That's what I pronounce it as. Face table. That's what everyone pronounces it as, except Franco. Franco, can you, I don't know if you can you come off mute and tell us how to say that word? All right, here's how you're actually supposed to say it. It's facetable. That's what I've unfortunately learned the hard way after embarrassing myself doing this presentation millions of times. Anyways, once we're all set with this, we end up creating our indexer. Our indexer is just like, how often do we migrate the data? So this is the weird thing. You cannot just connect your data to Azure AI Search. You unfortunately have to migrate it. However, once you actually do all of this, your data ends up here. And then once you have your index, you can start talking to it. For instance, if I type in the word Japan and I search for it, it's going to go and pull back the hotel that's closely themed to Japan. Look, the word Japan doesn't even exist. It figured it out. And if I type in Tokyo here and I hit enter, there it is. It's all the same. But here's where I think it gets really powerful. If you come into here and then you scroll up, I like to use the the REST client inside of Visual Studios, you don't have to use this wizard right here to build all of this for you. What you could actually do is come into the REST client and do it. And then you can make certain requests here. Like, let me get my information. Cool. Right now, this fetched all of my information about my index that I just made for my hotels. It pulled them all here. And there's fastable again. Is it sortable? Is it searchable? All that. But you'll notice this gives you a lot more details. So what I like about going through the REST client is it lets me customize it a little bit. Now, I'm not going to go through a whole AI lesson here, but I just want to point out a few things for all of you that really want some power. So if I go in here, I'm going to go back into, let me click Edit JSON. If I scroll down to the bottom, you'll notice that I have certain, algorithms that it's using. This HNSW is kind of the default one. What that means is when it does the search for your data, go find the ones that are like a close match. However, if you are super scrupulous and you want exact results, you can change this to KNN, which does a really exhaustive search. So if you really want more power and tweaking around what algorithm it uses to find your data, you can do that here. That's what I like about Azure AI Search, is it gives you more of that power. Now, my favorite part of all of it is actually seeing it in action. So let's hop into here, into Copilot Studio. So here's all my data in Dataverse. So all of you that were saying, oh, you know, SQL connector isn't great. Let's compare it to the Dataverse one. Dataverse is the greatest thing ever. Dataverse is great. I love it. Let's put it to the test. So here I have a Dataverse connector talking to my hotels table here. And then here I have Azure AI Search. Let's ask it a question. Ben, where's your favorite place to go on vacation? You're in Utah, so we're in the same place.
You're in, really? Okay. Probably either Yellowstone or Disneyland.
Which is a good hotel? Oh, God. All right. You picked an interesting one. If I like Yellowstone National Park. I have no idea if this is going to work. This is going to be awesome. All right. I want you to do this, Ben, in your head. When I click this submit button, I want you to count in your head how many seconds this takes. And go. Oh, it's probably because I should have refreshed. Oh, there it is. All right, now it started. Ooh, okay. So recommended fantasy factor. It's arcade theme. You might look for these located near WoW. Okay, so it did a pretty decent job. It's all right. I'm going to ask it. Let's ask this same thing over here to the Dataverse one and see what happens there. Ben, how many seconds was that?
Like 8 seconds.
All right. Can you do it again for here?
Yeah.
And go. Let's compare it to Dataverse. All right. While this gets going, and it's definitely going to take a minute, I want to start asking some other questions to it. So I'm going to hop in here, move this over here, and then I'm going to hop down to... Cool. It kind of, not quite. It's offering kind of the same ones over and over. I wouldn't say those are that accurate. Let's try it again. By the way, how many seconds was that, Ben?
Like 20-ish.
Exactly. Azure AI Search is way faster. All right, let me hop in and ask another one. Which hotel is for ski lovers? Let's compare these two. How long this one takes. And this one, really ASAP. It nailed it. Skiing in the apps, and that took like 3 seconds. We're going to hop into Dataverse, ask it to the same question. See how well it does. It's taking its time. It's thinking. In the meantime, while it's thinking, I'm going to go and ask it some nuts things. Okay, it got it. It took a little while. I'm going to say, I forgot my husband's birthday. Which vacation would be a grand gesture of our love? Let's see how that one does there. Romantic hot air balloon ride. I would agree. Nailed it. Let's go here. Let's ask it the same thing. See how it's doing. No information found. Are you starting to see where I'm going with this? As incredible as Dataverse is, I haven't seen it anywhere near keep up in terms of accuracy or speed. And even I've seen incredible triumphs in Dataverse. I've been using this demo for like, I don't know, a few months now, playing with the comparison, and I've seen Dataverse get better and better over time. I'm pretty sure every time I do this, I have to make my questions even harder because Dataverse is catching up. However, to catch up with Azure AI Search has been here for like 10 years in terms of cognitive search. So it's like, it's really hard to compete with that. I'm out of time. Yeah, Josh?
Yeah,
Sweet.
yeah, right,
Well,
right, Mark.
Thank you all for listening. Appreciate it. And thank you to the organizers.
Thank you so much, Sean. That was brilliant. Always enjoy your green screen sessions, as I think others do as well. Yeah, moving on to our next speaker. Sarah, are you there?
Yeah, hello.
Perfect. Hello, you want to take the steering wheel?
Just share my screen. I'm so glad that I only realised 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, that I was following Sean. No pressure. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, great. So thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here. Just find my control.
Sarah, we can see your presenter view.
Yeah.
So you just need to flip them.
Get them wrong screen, yeah.
I can't work my mouse properly. Hold on. I don't know how I flick it from presenter to hi presenter. Bear with me. Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Right, cool. Hi, sorry about that. I know I'm on the clock. I've been warned that Rani is ruthless, so I'm going to do my best to keep this in time. I'm Sarah Jones, and I am a principal recruitment consultant at MS Talent. I run some community events, including Power Platform, High Five, Misfits podcast. I'm on the organising committee for Experts Live UK and the upcoming Manchester AI user group. So I wanted to do a whistle-stop tour today for you on application process and the things I find myself repeating myself about. So I'm going to go fast. There's a lot of content. We might have time for questions. If not, you can reach out to me afterwards and we can have a conversation. So first off, just the basics around your CV and LinkedIn profile, figuring out what you want and what your career trajectory might look like. Taking a bit of control of your application processes, what to do when you get to interview, and how to negotiate if you're applying direct, and how to deal with a counter offer as well, which can be quite uncomfortable. So the basics, you know, even if you're not looking for a job, is your LinkedIn up to date? Is your brand looking good? I think it's important to keep that consistently updated. It's good to keep a CV up to date as well. You know, you guys are working on projects all the time. So just keep a log of those things. Bear in mind that, you know, recruiters, talent teams, and now AI are searching keywords all the time. So make sure the words are in your CV that need to be visible around the technologies that you're working with, certificates that you've got, things like that. And the lower level is that project details, so the budgets you've been working to, the industries that you're working in as well, are useful for people to know. And what have you delivered in those roles is really useful as well. So just more context, you know, a nice looking CV is great. Charlie, I'm looking at you. I can see you on my screen now. We've had this conversation a couple of years ago. It's a great looking CV, but where's the story? Like, who are you? If you contribute in the community, if you mentor, if you're on the forums, if you do things like speaking and blogs, get those on your CV as well. People can go and find that content and interact with the companies that you're looking at, the people that are maybe senior, the CTO, the lead of the practice, and maybe the HR teams that you can see are hiring for that role. And do you know what you want? Okay, so you might have, there might be a trigger that's getting you to start looking for a new role. Okay, so is that, you know, I'm not paid enough. I didn't get the promotion that I wanted. The technologies aren't moving the direction that I want them to for me and my career trajectory. You know, is there training? Has leadership changed and therefore the culture's changed? If you can figure out maybe your top 3 that you're going to stick to, and you can change them if you change your mind, but it's a good way for keeping control over making decisions on yes or no, this is what I want to move into, this is a company that I want to work with or not. Working conditions have changed so much over the last 5 years, and they continue to change. There are companies bringing people back into the office. I'm seeing more client face-to-face on-site requirements now in job descriptions. So just make sure you know what your non-negotiables are. And have you really thought about your career goal, or are you leaving in a little bit of a tantrum? You know, kind of stick to those goals. If you're leaving because you're not happy, it's still important to control what your goals are and stick into those. I've put a last minute trajectory slide in here, and it's a whole session on its own, I think, but it was something someone suggested to me. And so there are different paths that you can take and different goals that you might want to reach. And the end kind of slot on these flowchart slides, you know, do you want to go into leadership eventually? Do you see that as your skill set and moving away from the tech and into the strategy? Do you want to keep on being technical? Do you want to go freelance and have a lifestyle, or do you actually want to build a business? Okay, and there are different routes into those things. Again, whole of a session, but it will require a mix of communication skills, technical skills, business acumen, and the things that you can work on along the way. So LinkedIn has made it very easy for us to just hit apply for everything that pops up, emailing us with recommendations, all of that sort of stuff. So don't just hit apply, look at it, look at the company, keep that control over the search. There's a lot of referral schemes going around at the moment as well, which is, it's great if you can get a role through a friend, but stick to the what and the why that you want, you know, and keep that in mind. That has to be at the front, ahead of wanting to work with the people that you know and that you like. Are you going to even be on project with those people? So really stick to your own goals. And then keep a record. This sounds like so simple, and a lot of you are used to running projects and things and would do this anyway. But a lot of people go, oh, so I thought it was worth putting in. Keep a record of the role that you've applied for, the company it's with, the person who is associated with that role as the hiring manager, if that is available, and the date that you applied. Because I would say that following up about 3 to 5 days after that application is absolutely fair enough. Just a quick message to say, hey, I submitted my application. You might be one of like 300, 400, 500 CVs, but actually only one of 5 or 10 that are anywhere close to what they're looking for. So it's definitely worth a follow-up. Okay, so you've done all of that. You've taken my advice. You've got to interview stage. Brilliant. You should have had a call. If you get to an interview, you should have been screened by a recruiter, whether it's me, whether it's an agency recruiter or an internal talent person. You should have more context on the role and where you know, the proportion of your skills is going. Is that build? Is it consultancy? What do they want from you? And do your research into the company, the interviewers, your colleagues. This will give you a personality almost for the culture, the team fit, the sort of backgrounds that people come from. And does that seem to align with you? It'll give you something to kind of bring up in conversation as well at interview, and it will show 100%. Something I've sort of forgotten until a conversation recently to tell people to do is screen share. So if you've got a cool project, if it's work, it might be under NDA. You might have done something yourself that was like awesome. If you've got something and it seems appropriate to offer that up on a call, you know, can I just share something with you that I did? Guarantee you that your personality is going to come through. They're going to feel your passion for the technologies and the projects that you work on and the way that you think. It's a really good way to demonstrate your skills on an interview, especially if there's no technical assessment for you to do. So have something ready if you can, and if it feels appropriate, I definitely recommend doing that. Always have questions ready. So what does success look like to you? What do you want from me? What am I expected to deliver? And what does my career trajectory here working with you look like? And then you've absolutely nailed it, got to the offer stage. Woohoo. So, okay, you should have an idea by now what the salary range was. If it wasn't advertised at first, you should have had this from the recruiter or the talent acquisition person that you've been talking to. So what is that sort of salary that you're expecting the offer to be? This should be smooth. If it is with the recruiter, they'll take that pain away. You won't feel too much of the negotiating if it needs to be done. So if you get an under offer, if it's less than what you asked for or less than what you were led to believe, it's fine to find out why before accepting or rejecting that offer. So were there gaps in my skill set? Is there something missing that I need to work on? And if you're still offering me the job, how do we get that gap filled? What do you expect from me? And what will you do to help me fill that gap? And that might actually be a great opportunity for you that you didn't know was available. If you were offered what was agreed at the start, I'm a bit of a stickler for this. If we agree terms at the beginning, you're looking for X salary, the client is happy to interview on that basis, don't start negotiating at the end when people are going to start feeling a little bit put out of place by that. It's not a good feel to start negotiating at the end. Get it agreed at the start, and it should keep things much more smooth. You get the over offer, brilliant. However, is there a change? Is there a change somewhere else? And you don't want to ruin that and kind of question too much, but you do need to know, is there additional leadership responsibilities? Are you expected more travel from me than I thought? Is there any reason why that's over? And if all that looks good, then hell yeah, happy days. Take it, take the money and accept. Don't forget to review the benefits and terms and everything as well. I have no idea how I'm doing for time, by the way, so I'm just going to keep whizzing through. I'm nearly done.
You're good for time.
Okay, cool. Okay, the counter offer. Listen to Linda. Stay away. If you've already gone through your with your manager or whoever is the decision maker in your organisation that you've got problems, that most of you do this. If you haven't, you probably should. If most things are okay. If you've asked for more money and they can't afford to give you more money, and then you get a counter offer and get that offer, the money was always there. So what's that all about? Why have you had to go through all of this effort to get the money that you wanted? And stick to your motivations as well. So why did you want to move in the first place? You know, are those things likely to change? They're actually going to change? And have they offered you these things before? You know, oh, there's going to be a change in structure in 6 months' time, or here's a little bit extra money. Is that really enough? And does it align with the things that you set out to achieve when you started applying for other jobs? And just be careful about the relationships that you might damage by going through this, accepting an offer and then turning it down after when you get a counter offer. There will be exceptions when it's really worthwhile. It might be ridiculous money. It might be something that you didn't know about in your organisation, but I think you really should challenge it and make sure that you're sure if you're going to go and accept a counter offer. That's it, done. Whew. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. That was awesome, as always.
We've got time for questions, or if anybody wants to ask questions, or are we ready to move on?
Yeah, we've got a couple of minutes. If there's any questions from anyone, feel free to. If not, we can just reach out to Sarah on LinkedIn or wherever.
Sarah, there's some questions on the chat. I don't know if you want to respond there, and then.
Oh, thank you.
And it just means during the course of the next hour or so, if there's any more questions, they can just be shared there.
I can work through those questions later or during the next session. That's okay.
Okay. Okay, so next up we have the fabulous Simon Owen. Over to you, Simon.
Hey, thanks everyone. Thanks, Josh. I can't believe, Sarah, that you're going to spend the next session going through the questions. Surely that you'll be listening, won't you?
I will be listening, I promise. I'm just nervous, so I'm just waffling.
No problem at all. No. So thanks very much for the invite, folks. It's really nice to be in these quick fire sessions alongside some of these superstars as well. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about a risk anatomy of an AI use case, and that sounds a lot grander than it is. But let me kind of frame it a little bit for you. So a bit of history alongside that with me. So I've been in the Power Platform space for 6 or 7 years now, both the client side. So I used to work for a big pharma company, GSK, for 3 years, helped establish all their governance and guardrails, grew a big user community, had a load of fun doing it. And then that transitioned me into Avanade at the moment. So I've been here for 3.5 years and been doing more of the same, really. So working with lots of different clients, different industries, different risk appetites to help them establish the Power Platform. And now more and more, like the rest of you, so we're hearing more about Copilot. We're looking at how do we enable this? Is it different? Is it the same? And the good news is it kind of builds on what we've been doing before. So there are some differences, but if I frame it, so if I talk about a use case, doesn't matter whether it's Power Platform, doesn't matter whether it's Copilot, could be ServiceNow, could be SAP, it's tech agnostic, doesn't matter. Some of those are going to be really small. So it might be about me making my life a bit easier. It might be automating some tasks. But some of them could be massive. They could be organization wide. They could be to tens, hundreds of thousands of people. They could be business critical. They could be using personal data or sensitive business data. We just don't know. You can't just say, well, I've got a use case, and so this is how I'll manage the risk. We can think about it in different ways. And if you kind of reflect that there's this scale of use case size and complexity and risk, we can start breaking that down. So we did this in the Power Platform world. It's the same in the Copilot world. So we can think about, well, okay, well, let me chunk these up into different buckets of risk. So in this case, we've used small, medium, large, extra large. And what we need to be able to do is to describe that. So if we looked at a Power Platform use case, we might look at, well, what's the data you're using? What's the classification of it? What's the sensitivity of it? How complex is the use case? What kind of process is it delivering? If it breaks, what's going to happen? Is the world going to end and kind of sirens flashing, red lights flashing? Or will nobody notice because it's only used by a handful of people? So we can start to ask these questions and non-technical questions to really understand, well, what is that size of risk and how do we describe it? And that's not to say that this is going to be perfect, that every answer will finally tune us and route us towards a particular size. It's not the real world, but this is a framework that gets us on that journey. It starts our conversation. And then we can map the governance to it. So something like small might be happy for anybody to attack those kind of use cases. It might be a SharePoint agent in SharePoint, a SharePoint agent. It might be me using a flow to make some automation of some of my tasks, make my life a little bit easier. We want to configure our platform to lock these things down and enable people to just get on with it, get out of their way, let them solve their problems, and then move on to the next problem. But where the risk climbs, we need to be more sensitive than that. We need to make sure that the right people are doing the right things in the right place, aligned with the right standards, they're supporting it in the right way, they're going through the right approvals. So we scale our governance accordingly. Now, we need to do exactly the same with Copilot use cases. It's no different. A lot of those principles, exactly the same. What we've implemented for our governance in Power Platform, we're going to use the same kind of thinking, the same kind of approach for our Copilot and our other AI use cases as well. So let's think about what's different in one of those use cases. So I'm going to ask you a question. So into chat, I want to get you to choose a number. Could be any number you like, whatever you fancy. So let's see what people put in. Just going to give you, I don't know, 30 seconds or so. We've got 100 from Charles, 3. Craig, I'm going to make you come off of chat and off of mute and just say what that number is.
Infinity, there you
go. Okay, we'll do that. That's cool. I've done something similar to this presentation once before, and somebody said 1 trillion, which was a great answer. It's perfect. So what have we got? Let's have a look. So far, the smallest we've got is 3. The largest we've got is Craig's annual income of infinity, or I'm just gonna give it the name a squillion to give it a bit of a frame. So you can see there's a lot of variability. I just asked you for a number. I didn't give you any clues. I didn't give you any guidelines. And essentially, that's what we're talking about on a much amplified scale, but around this non-deterministic way that we can engage with AI. So if we just ask it a random question like that, or a really loose question, we'll get a massive spread of results. So we got from 3 up to a squillion. We got this massive variation in our outcome. So if we were doing something similar in a business context, we might ask it a really loose, stupid question, and then who knows what kind of answer we're going to get. So we've got to think about that when we're defining our use cases and thinking about the risk of them. Now, we can control some of that by giving it the right grounding data, telling it what range we want to accept, perhaps make sure that we're getting the right prompt quality. So if I said to you, I want you to all choose a number between 0 and 5 in increments of whole numbers, we'd get a really different set of results, wouldn't we? So by defining what we're expecting, we can remove that variation and we can reduce that risk. So we can be a bit more predictable about our outcomes. Also, we can put a human in the loop. So rather than letting our solution, our AI bot, our agent just whiz off and do whatever it likes, we can put some checkpoints in. So we might say, I'm going to ask you for that number between 0 and 5, but before I do anything with it, I'm going to check it. I'm not just going to let it go through and do its own thing. So I'm going to be that human in the loop at the beginning, and then maybe I'm going to be the human in the loop bit at the end before it goes on to something else as well. Now, some of the level of risk, it depends what that onward thing is. So if it's just looking at some data, looking at an article, and it's summarizing it for me just for my interest, very low risk. If it's something that's maybe manipulating some data, putting it back into one of my core business systems, much bigger risk. If it's a string of activities, well, all of a sudden that risk starts to amplify. So my risk in the first piece then gets fed into the risk in the second piece and onwards. So we've got to think about, well, what are we actually architecting? And then there's that business context piece. So if we're doing something with financial data, with salary, with the Craig's $1 salary information, that's very different than if perhaps it's just I don't know, some project milestones or something non-sensitive, and it depends what we're doing with it. So we've got to think about this bigger business context as well. So using these kind of criteria, we can start to have a look at, well, what's the size of the risk of our use case? But it also gives us those levers that we can pull to reduce that risk as well. Now, if we think about that compounding risk, this is the same as, I don't know if you've heard the term of compounding interest. So stuff like putting money into your bank account. You put $100 in today, then you get, well, if ideally 10% interest, that turns into $110. Then you get 10% interest on that, and it kind of runs away. So you get this exponential growth. Now, in this example, you can see that by combining more and more agents, that's really going to amplify that risk as well. So it's going to start to send us on that, potentially on that exponential growth of risk as well. So I'm going to give you a real world example of that. So if our input is an egg, that range of outputs, so we may end up with a chicken, but like we learnt on Jurassic Park, we may end up with a velociraptor. So if we think about the business context on that, if we're creating a petting zoo, we probably want one outcome rather than the other. It's all down to what the impact is. So we've got to think about this end to end. So if I just summarize those three things, get that right foundation in place, make sure that you've got the right people building the right things in the right way with the right approvals in there. think about how that structure comes together and what are those different elements and how can you make sure that you're implementing the right controls to reduce that risk. And then experiment and test. We've got to find different ways to test our AI solutions and make sure that we're confident that what we're putting into production really is what we're trying to deliver at the lowest possible risk level. And then a bonus fourth one, consider whether you'd prefer to be that velociraptor or that chicken. I think that's something for us to all ponder on during the rest of today's sessions. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you, Simon. That was awesome. I think we'll all agree. Lots of reactions there in the chat. So, yeah, thank you. Moving on to our next speaker then, we have Brian Archer. Now, Brian's a new speaker, so can everyone give him some love, please? Because, yeah, I'm sure he's going to be a little bit nervous. But, yeah, Brian, do you want to take the floor?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Let me share my screen. Yeah. So today I'm going to be talking a bit about enhancing Power Platform solutions with pro-code tools. Let me just go into presentation mode. So before we get into the main topic, a little bit about myself. So Brian Archer, I'm currently Power Platform engineer at Ofgem. But about my background, I actually came to the Power Platform from an infrastructure background, so looking after servers, networking equipment, end user devices, that sort of thing, before I kind of stumbled across Power Platform, and for the last few years been specialising in Power Platform, working across Canvas apps, model-driven apps, Power Automate, and governance as well. Before we talk about implementing pro-code tools in our Power Platform solutions, let's go over a bit about what we mean when we say pro-code. So when people talk about pro-code, typically they are talking about traditional software development languages like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and C#. Now, things like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are commonly used in front-end web development. So HTML is used to build site structure. CSS is what's typically used to style a website. And JavaScript is what's used to add interactivity and custom logic to your website. Now, Power Platform is commonly thought of as a low-code platform. However, it does offer multiple ways to extend into the pro-code world, and we'll talk about some of them in the next few slides. So why might we enhance with pro-code? So first of all, you can create enhanced user interfaces versus what you get out the box. So using some HTML and CSS, you can create some enhanced user interfaces. You can also fully customize branding and design consistency. And with tools like JavaScript, you can add enhanced interactivity and improved client-side logic performance. You also got opportunities to leverage third-party data sources using APIs, and you can also integrate with the kind of wider Microsoft stack with Azure as well. And another reason why you might want to look into pro-code tools is to enhance your own skill set and kind of make yourself more marketable in the job market as well. So there's multiple ways you can enhance solutions with pro-code. So first of all, let's talk about Canvas apps. So Canvas apps offer a couple of different ways to leverage pro-code tools, mainly using things like HTML and CSS. You can achieve custom design. And if we look at Power App Component Framework, you can build completely custom components to suit your own needs. And you can also use things like custom connectors to call third-party APIs as well. Now, I've got a demo of a Canvas app here, so let me pull that in, if I can grab that from my other screen. So got a couple of little showcases here just to showcase what is possible. So this is a PCF component, nothing particularly revolutionary about it. It's a custom component that takes in a text parameter and it just adds a little glow effect to it, and it also takes in parameters like text size, text color, text alignment, that sort of thing. But it just kind of shows you a bit about what's achievable with PCF components and the fact that you can also add in parameters as well into your component. Second example we've got is a nice little confetti PCF component. So again, nothing particularly revolutionary. It takes in a spread value to modify the spread of the confetti, but again, just kind of showing what's possible with custom PCF components. Next one I've got is some customizations that you can do with HTML and CSS. So using some HTML and CSS, you can create this nice blur effect for your components. So you could have something like a charts shown here, and then you kind of use this blur effect to be able to still see the text in the background. So it can just create a nice user interface. You've also got this kind of gradient effect that you can achieve using CSS. So again, this could be used for like an app background, and it just gives a nice gradient effect, and you can customize the colors. And these are just things that's a bit trickier to achieve with out of the box components, but it's completely achievable using things like HTML and CSS. And next, if we move on to model-driven app enhancements. So enhancing a model-driven app with ProCode, you're typically looking at implementing custom logic using JavaScript. And there's a couple of different ways you can do this. So you can create custom command buttons. So that's a custom button in the command bar. When you press it, it runs some JavaScript code, and that goes off and performs some custom logic. You can also run JavaScript code when you open a record or when you save a record. And I'll show you some examples of that in a minute as well. And using some JavaScript code in a model-driven app offers several improvements over things like business rules, which are out-of-the-box tools. So with JavaScript, you can do more complex logic. You've got the ability to implement dynamic interactive elements, and you get some improved performance by minimizing server-side processing. And I've also got a demonstration of a model-driven app as well. So let me drag that across here. So what we're looking at here is a help desk model-driven app. So we've got a list of cases here. If I open up one of the cases, you'll see I get a pop-up when that case opens, and this pop-up is notes that are related to the organization or the customer that this case is logged against. So if I click OK there, you'll see that disappears, and those notes are actually coming from a column that's attached to the organization table, and it's attached to this particular organization, and that is being displayed when you open up the record. Another customization I've got here is I spoke about custom command buttons. So there's a custom button here called Assign to Me, and when I click that, that runs some JavaScript code to automatically assign the case to the currently logged in user. And another customization you can do is to show and hide certain fields in a model-driven app. So if I change this to resolved, you'll see I get a case resolution element to the forum. So that only shows if resolved equals yes. So that's another kind of customization you can do with JavaScript as well. The next component I'll talk about is Power Pages. So Power Pages is Power Platform's, I guess, primarily low-code way of building websites. And although it's typically thought of as low-code, you do get full control over the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript in a web-based VS Code environment. Some of the customizations you can do is you can incorporate custom components. So for example, Bootstrap components. You get complete control over the website theme using custom CSS, and you can write your own logic in JavaScript. And you can also make calls to custom APIs. So I've also got a demo of a Power Pages site, so let me drag that in here. So what we're looking at is a fictitious website that's built in Power Pages. So I've got the menu here. So this is built using Bootstrap components. Shout out to Franco, who was the inspiration for me for this from his talk in January. All of these items are coming from a Dataverse table. Now, behind the scenes, it's actually calling a custom web API, which is hosted in an Azure web app to perform the back-end authentication between the website and Dataverse. So there's no secrets or authentication tokens stored in the front-end JavaScript. We've also got the reservation forum, and again, this is a Bootstrap forum. But I've also implemented some validation into the forum. So if I try and submit this without the required fields filled in, it actually comes back with an error saying that these fields are required. And I've also gone a step further with the email and phone fields. Using JavaScript, I've actually implemented a regex check so that it has to be a valid email address and it has to be a valid phone number. And then once you fill in the forum, it creates the record and it then goes off and runs a Power Automate flow to check for table availability for your number of guests and your date and time. And this is actually using the Dataverse web API as opposed to a custom web API as well. So you've got that option when it comes to Power Pages as well. Now, what if I'm not a traditional pro-code developer? Well, the good news is that you don't have to be. And I'm not, as I said before, my background is not in software development, it was in infrastructure. But what you do have to do is you have to understand the fundamentals of software development. So you have to understand your data types, your conditional logic, your operators, all those sort of things. And in the modern world of AI, we've got some tools that can help with things like completing a code block or giving you some starter code. So things like ChatGPT and Gemini. The only word of caution I would give with that is don't expect them to generate a full working code for you. So that's where your fundamentals understanding comes in, that you need to kind of know the code that the AI tool is providing and you need to be able to troubleshoot it in some aspects as well. And lastly, I've just got some resources to point you to. So first off, we've got Traverse Media, who has content on YouTube, is really good for, he's got some getting started videos on HTML, CSS and JavaScript fundamentals. Howden Rashid, which I'm sure we'll be familiar with on LinkedIn, a while back he did some Solution Sunday series, and he's really focused on implementing JavaScript and model-driven apps. So he's got various scenarios that you can follow through with if you want to get started with implementing JavaScript in your model-driven apps. And then this one, CSS Diner, that's just a fun little game that lets you practice your CSS code. And I've also got CSS Glassmorphism. This lets you generate CSS glassmorphism effects. You just pick your colors and then it kind of gives you the CSS code that you can copy and paste straight into your Canvas app as well. And that's all from me. Thank you. And I'll pass over to the next speaker.
Thanks, Brian. That was awesome. I think everyone will agree for a first time speaking that smashed out of the park. So yeah, that was brilliant. So next up we have Bülent. Are you on the call?
I am.
Hello, I will pass on to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I also agree, the previous speaker, that was really awesome for the first time. Congratulations. Cool. So I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So today's topic is about Copilot Studio Kit. And I don't know if you heard about this one. So this has been brought out by the Copilot PowerCat. And I always wanted to try these things out. And it's called, in a nutshell, just to have a rough overview and also a little demo what we can just provide within the next 15 minutes. So for any case that you don't know me, but I'm pretty sure majority just knows. But my name is Bülent Altinsoy. I'm based here in Germany, in Hanover, so it's quite in the north of Germany. I'm working at Evinate, a company, since over 14 years now. I'm in a new role since this month as a senior Power Platform Copilot Studio expert, and been again in the client business and delivering again. I'm also a Microsoft MVP as well since beginning this year, and thank you for everyone in this call. Majority of you have supported me so much. That's really, really cool. And also Microsoft certified trainer since a couple of years. And yeah, today's theme is about Knight Rider and Kit. You know, we're a team, and today the Copilot Studio Kit hopefully can also be very helpful as well. You can find me as well with that QR code if you want more about me. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Also have a Dataverse, multi-Dataverse YouTube channel, which I'm just publishing from time to time some videos as well. Now, but today's topic is about, so what is the PowerCat Copilot Studio Kit? So this has been offered by PowerCat, the Copilot PowerCat, since a couple of months, and they are updating them frequently. So this is a comprehensive set of capabilities designed so they can augment Copilot Studio, so can extend it more. And what you can see on the screen already is, but we will also see that a little bit when we just go a little bit live into when we just have installed that, that you can just do the following features. So one of the features I'm just really looking for, and which before we just go there, before you can run this, obviously prerequisites, yeah, that's important. So if to run this, you definitely need Dataverse. Because you need to save somewhere all the data that this kit is just providing, the test data, etc., etc. You also need licensing. You need a Power Apps licensing, because that kit comes with a model-driven app where you can just, as you have seen in the previous screen, that way you can just configure all the things you just want to do. Without that, it will not work. And obviously, there's also some flows running in the background, so we also need Power Automate licensing as well. And oh yeah, when I just wanted to install this one, you also need to install the Creator Kit before as well, otherwise it will not run. So lots of things you just need to install before everything is just running. But once everything has been installed, then everything will be cool. So let's have a look into the features, what is just bringing in. First of all, I think one of the best features, if it works, that's, you know, the thing which I just have to say, is the testing capabilities. You need to test Copilot agents. So how can we do this? And the testing capabilities, amongst others, just brings test and test sets, which you can just configure, and then you can just run this against latencies, observed responses, run against level aggregates, and all that kind of things is important. So what you're just doing is you're matching responses. That can be attachment matches, that can be topic matches, and that can also be generative AI answers as well, which you can just use AI Builder against just to analyze if there is some kind of a match as well. Based on that, this is very important, because generative AI is what the words already says, produces every time different results, and that makes the testing a little bit harder. So that's really cool that that kind of a test capabilities is there, which we can also use, and this will be definitely improved in the future as well. And other things are KPIs, conversational KPIs. This is also important. How good is your agent? So in the previous version of Copilot Studio, there was Power Virtual Agent, and definitely you need to run a couple of cycles till you get some results where you could say, okay, now we can really use that in production. With Copilot Studio, the things have changed, but be aware of, you know, even if it's Copilot Studio, that doesn't mean that you can use every time the generative AI features. It really depends on the company, if it's allowed, yes or no, if the laws in the country is also allowing this, yes or no. So you can still, fall into that pre-Copilot Studio stage with Power Virtual Agents where you only use this feature without the generative AI. And that conversational KPIs, these are sets of Power BI analytics reports, dashboards, which helps you to analyze if your agent is really behaving. One of the things which I haven't tested out, it's just on my list as well, is also a SharePoint synchronization as well. So Microsoft promises that you can just configure and that you can make content synchronization with SharePoint as well, which is a very interesting feature, but there's additional configuration just needed to get this running as well. One of the features where I believe this will definitely give a value is the web chat playground. So nothing is more boring as you're using out of the box the web chat just looks like, nah, not that super cool. But you will see with the web chat playground, you can just really make it a little bit more exciting. We will see a little demo, even this is not working out, and I will tell you the reason why it's not working out. Adaptive cards gallery is another thing. I think adaptive cards just don't get so much love because things are maybe a little bit too complex just to configure that. This toolkit just comes in with a lot of examples, which just gives you a value of how adaptive cards, can really look awesome and can make, your chat experience a little bit much more better. This is new. This is in preview. This came with the latest version. If you haven't installed the latest kit version, then this is Agent Inventory, which just gives you an overview about all the agents which are running, plus also, which kind of orchestration is being used, also what kind of authentication mode is being used, if it's secure, if it's not secure, what kind of knowledge source has been used. And that gives us a little bit more control about the things which were not that controllable before. Because nothing is, let's say someone is just using the new orchestration model, for example, in Copilot Studio, this can get really, with all the messages, much more expensive. And having a good overview about this is what the agent inventory is just promising. Last but not least, what we have here is the agent review tool. And that gives you also some kind of an analysis. How good is your agent in terms of performance, in terms of security, and that gives you also some kind of insights which helps you to make your agent more secure, because this will be a topic which will come along with us the next years more and more. It's not just only about publishing, it's also about how chatty is your Copilot, how secure is your Copilot, that it's not just bringing out the information that you maybe don't want to share with the whole rest of the internet. Good. So now let's have a demo on Adaptive Cards Gallery, but let's have a little look on how this all looks like. So let me just go in, and this is a Copilot Studio Kit. This is a model-driven app, which you can just use. At the moment, what you see, you don't see a lot of test runs because I just have installed it a couple of days ago. What you can see is, and that's where I wanted to go, is the adaptive cards part. So you see a gallery of adaptive cards which you can just use, which is cool. So that gives you an idea of how it could look like. So I'm just starting with things like, for example, event registration or ticket information. So let me just click on this one, and then it just opens up, in that case, the code which you can use, but there are also this kind of a button opening Copilot Studio. So if you have configured it correctly, then it will just open that up, and then you will see how the experience can look like. So let's give it a couple of seconds of time till this is loading. So this is also an agent just provided by PowerCat that you can use. It's just called Adaptive Card Gallery. And then you get a non-nice message like, hey, the topic is managed and non-customizable, but it just helps us. So what we can do is we're just starting a trigger like ticket information, which I'm just typing in here in that case. to get information. So, and once I'm just using this one, then you will see that this experience just looks completely different of how we usually are just using the chatbot. So usually you see only everything in text, but you can just use here in that case, you know, rich HTML in that case, where you can just use it. And you can see you can customize your buttons as well. Doesn't look every time very good experience and doesn't work in every application in the Power Platform very well. For example, if you want to use it in Canvas apps, the experience there will not be that rich. But I think this is a stage where we'll come with adaptive cards. So let's also use another one. For example, approval request or feedback. Feedback is also good. So I had feedback here somewhere. Oh, this one, simple thumbs down, down rating. That's exactly what I wanted to do. So because that also looks nice, so let me just type in the keyword just to trigger this one, simple thumb up. So that wasn't what I wanted. Let me just try it again. Simple thumb, and I think that already gives the trick. Okay, awesome. So now what you can just do is you can just give a simple yes or no in that case. So for example, I like this feature. I'm just clicking on this one. So and I say, I like this because blah, 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 blah. And if you just click on the submit button, then you get the feedback back, additional feedback. I like it. And this can be then saved somewhere else. So this gives you a little bit more, you know, a better chat experience, how you can just use, and that's only adaptive cards, which you can just use. So looking at the time, as I know, time is always flying, just a little look in also the web chat playground as well. In the web chat playground, you have the ability just that your chatbot is really looking differently, as you can see here. So I have one, which is Sunset, which I really like. And so if you just bring it in here, then you can see you can just customize the background. You can customize, you know, all the colors and so on. If you click on this one, it gives you also the ability, not only that you can change, you know, the general visibility, it also gives you accessibility feedback as well, where you can just change it. You have this as a JSON here, but you can also have it as an HTML. So if you have just create your agent token configured correctly, then it just you can also do a web preview. But this is, you know, the part which I just came across, which just didn't work because Microsoft and Copilot Studio just have changed something. And this is, you know, the downside, you know, everything seems to be positive. No, because this is a tool which needs to be adjusted all the time when there's some changes happening in Copilot Studio. And this is, you know, what sometimes it can break. But let's see how the new version will work. And I think this can also work. But this chat experience definitely, if that works, looks much, much better as it is. I'm looking at the time. Time is always not my friend. So it's just coming back. And I'm happy to answer some question if there are any question. If not, then I was very, very happy to be part of that amazing Scottish Power Platform user group. And I'm very, very thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Bülent. That was amazing. And annoyed that you've got the Knight Rider theme tune stuck in my head for the rest of the evening, but I'll let you off because it was a brilliant session. So next up we have Sharon Smith. You want to take over?
Yeah, I certainly can do. Just bear with me and find the right deck and present in Teams. Hopefully, you should see my deck. Okay, wrong deck. Oh no, right deck. Because this is a presentation that I actually did on Friday, and you're not going to have the whole 45-minute presentation I did at Colour Cloud in Hungary. What I have done is I have just picked out probably my favourite part of that whole 45-minute presentation. So let's get started. Who am I? So I am Sharon Smith. I'm a Dynamics 365 solution architect. I'm a dual Microsoft BizApps MVP, covering both customer experience and customer service, one of only 4 in the world, an honour that I hold alongside the absolute premier, Diane. I've got 8 years experience with Dynamics in CRM and ERP, working on both global and national projects. I'm the lead architect for ANS Group's Microsoft Fast Track Portfolio Partner Program. And probably the most important thing out of that whole slide is I am a Microsoft Women in Power Platform mentor and Power Up Program champ. That's what actually matters to me. So what are we actually looking at today? Project Sophia. I have probably been talking about Project Sophia now for a good 18 months to 2 years. And what we're actually going to look at in particular is we are going to look at the version of Project Sophia that is in Microsoft 365 Copilot for Sales. And hopefully, thank you, Charlie. Sorry, honoured and numbered. Got to mention the honoured and numbered bit. But yeah, so and hopefully if we have enough time left, which I doubt we will do, we might have a quick look at where Project Sophia has actually gone, because it's gonna have a future. Anyway, so that is all you are getting from my deck, because I don't particularly like doing death by PowerPoint. And what we're actually going to do is I am going to share my screen, and let me get you into an actual system. So, right, hopefully you're actually seeing my website now. Safe place to go to. Somebody do me some nods, Josh, maybe, to let me know. Yep. Okay, wonderful. Thanks. Okay, so why have I taken you to my website? Well, the reason I've taken you here to begin with is because if you want to know about me talking about Project Sophia, you will find some wonderful blog posts. So you'll find one here back from November 2024, all about what I'm going to be showing you now, Project Sophia in Copilot for Sales. Please note this screenshot. It is important. One of the reasons why I've actually taken you here. And you will also see the bit that I would like to show you about if I have time. And that is where Project Sophia is actually ended up on. And that is in the newly announced D365 Sales Research Agent, which is the new home for Project Sophia. If we don't have time to have a look at the highlights video about it, read this blog about it. This will actually tell you all about where Project Sophia has ended up. So let's actually have a look at Project Sophia. Yes, I am still here. This is Project Sophia. How did it actually start off? Well, it started off as Julia, one of the Microsoft VPs. It started off as a pet project for her about 2 years ago. It is an infinite canvas, and that might be a term that you're actually starting to get used to, especially from the perspective of Copilot. This is the way that we are starting to interrogate and engage with our data. One of the things that you'll find if you look at some of the public previews of Copilot in Dynamics Sales Hub is you will see in there that there is an infinite canvas for interrogating your sales data using Copilot. That's something else that we could do a demo on another day. But this whole idea of being able to actually use natural language to look at your data, it is becoming almost like the common way of actually looking at, talking at, interrogating data in business applications. And some of us will actually say it is the future of biz apps. So what is Project Sophia? It is a way of actually interrogating your sales data. It's aimed probably more at what I would say are your marketing supervisors at the moment and your C-suites, and you'll see why in a minute. Now, important point, and this is something which was sent as shockwave through Hamburg, literally on Friday, because what I'm actually about to show you, two people who you would think should know better, Chris Huntingford and Will Dorrington, did not know this. And considering Donna Sarker had actually said, did you not actually see what I told you about Per? Oh, made my heart absolutely sing. So the most important thing about Project Sophia is that you can actually set context. So if I go into here, up here, you log in, For example, first of all, log in with your Microsoft work account or your own Microsoft personal account. If you log in using your Microsoft work account, you will get your work data. So I would suggest if you're going in and having a play around, don't do that. If you log in using your own personal developer account, you can actually bring in some sample data which Microsoft provides you with that you can have a bit of a play around with. Important thing for logging in is it will remember where you are and where you were last time. So if you go away, come back, it will remember you. Context. This is the bit that Will and Chris did not know about. And this is what makes Project Sophia so powerful, because you can actually, create the context that you are actually interrogating the data with. And you can make it up. It does not have to be you. As you can see here, the example it's saying here is, I am a sales manager. I'm in a particular type of industry. I'm in a particular type of role. And I am, for example, as you might, it's a little bit grayed out. So if I read it, it says, I am a sales manager in the telecoms industry, and I overlook 6 territories in Washington State. So that's the kind of context you can actually give it. And then what Project Sophia will do is it will actually use that context in order to once you actually do the queries, to return the data and its responses to you. You can give it a fiscal year start. So if you were Microsoft, for example, it would be July. You can say which currency you're working in, British pounds. So let's pretend that we are Microsoft. And another really crucial thing is that you can bring in acronyms and data dictionaries. And this is really powerful for organizations. I mean, how many times have we actually been on a project and your client is actually starting to use acronyms, BPM and this acronym and that acronym, and you have absolutely no idea what that means until you actually start to learn that language. Well, the same with the system. It doesn't know what BPM means. It's actually a business program manager. But anyway, in that particular scenario. But if you can actually give that acronym and data dictionary to the system, it has that language effectively loaded into it, and it understands so much better what you're actually talking to it about. And then what you can also do is, if you decide that you've gone down a particular route of exploring the data with in a particular role and a particular industry, you can basically just permanently delete all of the data and start afresh again. So it's like wiping your cache clear. So, and this is the slider to say, do you want to actually save this context or into the source memory or not? Set this up to begin with. Make sure you set this up to begin with. Then once you've done that, the other thing you need to do is get data in here. And you do this down here, where it's just a little bit here saying click data. Now what you will see here is you can actually use your data from Dataverse, from the remember, I'm logged in as my own personal developer, so I have Dynamics Sales and Dynamics Customer Service in there. It could be field service, it could be marketing, customer insights journeys. Actually, not so much customer insights journeys because that uses your sales data, but you can bring in the data from individual apps or all apps if you go down the Dataverse route. You can also upload data. If I just click on that, you'll see it just opens up our normal choose a file window. And so that's a way of you actually bringing in external data. So imagine that you could actually set this up, bring in your Dataverse data. Why might that be important? Well, you might want to bring in, say, your sales data. I know it says it's for sales leaders, but sales data and field service data. And then what you could do is you could use this to interrogate and say, okay, right, do I have a certain piece of equipment for a certain customer which keeps on breaking down? Am I seeing that as a regular thing? Can I actually look at seeing, linking the field service data with the sales data in here to see how often have they actually replaced that piece of equipment? Are the sales orders actually coming through me, through my sales data? Are they going externally? Am I seeing any sort of patterns here? This is looking for patterns. If I see any sort of patterns here, can I actually suggest, well, maybe if you're getting a certain breakdown on a certain piece of equipment on a regular basis, you might want to think about upgrading that piece of equipment. Or if you haven't already got a service contract arranged on that piece of equipment, maybe we can get it serviced on a regular basis. That is the power of what Project Sophia can actually do. And the other thing is you can, that external data is you could actually bring in trends data, marketing trends data. You could bring in foresters reports, say, for example. All of that kind of information can be brought in here and it will be used contextually to actually do the interrogating. So let's have a quick look at that interrogation by just using the sample data that Microsoft give you itself. And one of the reasons that I do this is because it's quick and easy for demoing. And so you can see that it's just loaded in a very simple sales CSV, and of course you can bring in as much data as you like through using Excel CSVs as you want. So once you've actually got that, if you want to add more data, you can add more data. I can then just basically interrogate you on that. And so what am I going to interrogate on? Well, let's look at research opportunities for growth. And in the same way as you have it with Copilot, you're given some prompts that you can actually use to kickstart you, or you can actually just type in and say your prompt and say, I want to look at da 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 da. But for ease, let's go with one of the prompts, because this research opportunities for growth, absolutely, as in, it's what is it saying? It's not saying what are the research opportunities, but it's saying, please research the opportunities for growth for me. Sorry, I should have contextualized that for you a little bit better. And what it's doing is it's basically preparing, this response for you. And one of the things that you can, and what you see is now what I have here is I have this lovely little, well, they call it an AI cursor. A little bit dodgy on that one. But what it's doing is as it's actually created one of these elements, it goes green, and then it goes, when it's still working on it, it's amber. And then when you've got everything, here we are. And this is what you get. So this is the power of it. And again, you can interrogate and ask questions on it down here. You can iterate on it, as you can see here. What it will do is it will give you some prompts based on what it's actually looked at. So you can iterate it, or you can ask information. You can also add in additional information, additional files, additional data into this. So you can continue to iterate on it. What it gives you on this left-hand side, and this is the powerful thing, is this gives you the narrative. So it basically gives you, says what it's actually done. It talks about the growth opportunities. It talks about, which are the high-performing accounts on your sales data, the moderate performers, what are the risk areas for missing targets. This is really powerful narrative. Just imagine taking this, just copying that and putting it into a C-suite slide deck, or a C-suite report, or report that's got to go out to stakeholders. Bam, done in moments. C-suite themselves can do that. They don't need a data analyst in order to be able to do this work themselves. They can actually come in here, do it themselves, and they've got that information straight away. Annual revenue versus revenue targets. If you hover over any one of these, just like if you were in the sales app itself, you can actually do a deeper dive and actually interrogate the information. As you can see, no different to if you were actually in the sales app itself in Dynamics and you were hovering over your pipeline, for example. So what would happen if I actually wanted to have a look at some more information on this? Well, let's have a quick do that. And as you can see, this is the other powerful thing I say. This gives you a hint of a prompt, and then it will give you the prompt into the actual narrative, and then you can iterate on that. You can put in, you could say, give me that and da da da, whatever else. And then when I do that, what it is doing is it is just regenerating that one single pane. Now, I know that I've got probably 1 minute and 20 odd seconds left. So what I would say is, if you were to, we actually went for a specific question that we asked. If you didn't ask a specific question and you just went for, give me the canvas based on the data, what it would do is it would give you an overview situation, and this big picture that we've got here, it would give you 4 different individual charts. And then it basically kind of like gives you an overview, and then you could do what we're doing here, regenerating the response on individual charts. And if I actually move this around a bit, what you will also see is that you have this infinite canvas, and what you can do is you can go off in any direction. So you could leave this here and you could generate a new one. As you can see, we've got our AR cursor here. It goes all over the place. And if I wanted to, I could do, right, okay, I've answered that question there. Yes, I know. And then I could leave that one there, and I could kind of like carry on down and do another one down here. And then you've still got all of that various different information sitting there that you can then refer back to. That is the power of Project Sophia.
That was awesome. Thanks, Sharon. Really appreciate that. I think everyone does as well. Definitely makes me want to check out Project Sophia now, that's for sure.
Absolutely. If you do look at my blog posts about Project Sophia, either one of them, you will find a link in there to where you can actually go to what I've just been doing, because this is just a public preview at the moment. So the hyperlinks will actually be in my blog posts, and go and play.
Awesome. Definitely will do. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to our final speaker of the evening, Charles Sexton. Do you want to take over?
Thanks, Josh. So, yeah, we've had 7 speakers so far, and now it's my turn. And instead of speaking about the wisdom that I have, like everyone else has, I'm going to speak about the wisdom that I didn't have. And hopefully, if anyone's feeling some imposter syndrome, you'll have a bit more confidence after this. Yeah, so my name's Charles Sexton, or Charlie. I'm a Power Platform Solution Architect at Capgemini. Now that I'm at Capgemini, thanks to amazing community members helping to build my knowledge and Sarah Jones giving me advice, I have the confidence to be able to say, I made these mistakes, and hopefully you can learn from them, and we can see you all at amazing companies if you're not already there. I know Josh has recently moved to an amazing company. So yeah, I'm passionate about Power Apps, Canvas apps in particular. I'm a former web developer, so when I approached Power Apps, Canvas apps, it was with that mindset of a web developer. So I was expecting things to work a particular way. And I'm also a co-organizer of a user group, the Power Platform UX UI Allies. So we talk about user experiences, user interfaces, and accessibility. So on to the first topic. I know we don't have too much time. My first app. So I was working for an energy consultancy company, and I created this app, and I'm still actually quite proud of it. I think I did a good job. And part of the reason why I did a good job is because I kept it very focused on one particular topic, and it's basically just a mobile app and doesn't do too much. But there were a few things that I could have done better for this. So let's move into a demo. Can you see that okay? Great, thank you. Yeah, so when you open up Canvas apps nowadays, you can create screen templates. So this gives you the opportunity to have a responsive design out of the box. But back when I created my first app, that wasn't something that was available to us. And I wasn't aware of how great containers are. So instead, I decided to use coordinates because I thought that was the way that you do things. So I positioned things on the screen by using numbers and formulas. So for instance, with this rectangle on the right-hand side here, you can see that's 40 pixels across by 40 pixels down. And then if I wanted to put something on top of that, then I would use formulas. So I'd say for this one, my X property, so how far it is horizontally along the screen, is going to be the same as my rectangular shapes X property, plus 32 pixels, because I want a bit of padding in there. And similar kind of thing for the Y property, but there we get a slightly more funky formula because we're trying to get it right in the middle of that. So as you can see from this, it's somewhat funky. It's not very low code, and you have to remember these formulas or find them from somewhere to then copy and paste them constantly. And it's also not very maintainable because we've got two buttons here, two controls here. And if I wanted to insert something in between them, I can't just insert it. I have to update multiple properties. So that was one of the mistakes that I made using coordinates. Instead of that, we can just use containers. So you have your one main container on the screen where you do have a bit of code in because you're saying you want it to be the width of the screen. So the parent of this control is the screen and the height of it. And then you can chuck everything in there and it will hold its dimensions and it will tell it where to sit within the page. So for this one, we've got this con page container and we're saying we want it to, everything inside it to justify at the start, so at the top of the screen, and to justify horizontally or align horizontally at the start, so on the far left of the screen. And then that means that everything will go up into that top left-hand corner automatically. We don't need to enter any formulas. And then all we have to do is, if we want some padding in there, we just enter the numbers for the padding that we want. So we've got 40 pixels both ways. So as you can see, this is identical so far, other than they throw in a drop shadow on containers. And then with our other container, we can just put our controls inside. So we're not using a rectangle shape in order to have this gray background anymore. We can just put the background on our container. And then these are automatically snapping into place. And in order to have a gap between them, there's a gap property on the container. So very simply, not to use coordinates, but instead just to use containers. Another bonus for this is that it will help with the accessibility. So you don't have to think as much about accessibility. Speaking of which, accessibility, so that's another mistake that I made with this app, is that I didn't think about accessibility whatsoever. So when building it, I had things that were showing and hiding, which can cause issues with screen readers. But also, I didn't ever go to this app checker up here, the stethoscope, which lists all of your accessibility issues, or rather all of the ones that they can figure out for you. And the most common one is missing accessible labels. So you can imagine that you've put hundreds of controls potentially into your app, hopefully not too many. You'll have potentially hundreds of missing accessible labels. And the last thing you want to do at the end of the project is go back and fill them all in. You might not even have the time or budget to do that. So that was the other thing where I messed up with this app. But because it was a small app and quite straightforward, there weren't too many issues with it. However, then I moved on and started working on larger projects. And one of the first issues that I wanted to talk about is where if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So this was where the person who was passing me the projects would basically think from the perspective of, this is a Power Apps project, we're using a Canvas app, and not really consider the fact that there's more to it than that. There's other technology that you can use. You can use model-driven apps. Maybe a Canvas app isn't the most appropriate. You can also use things outside of Power Platform, for example. So maybe a Microsoft form would be enough to do the job. You don't actually need a Canvas app. Maybe a SharePoint list will do the job. Or even outside of Microsoft 365. So maybe a web app would be a better suit for this particular project. So another mistake that I just accepted, and I just went and built Canvas apps. Instead, I should have taken a step back and thought, should it actually be a Canvas app or should it be something else? So I told you they were bigger apps. I overloaded screens. And what happens when you do that is you're putting too many controls, potentially too much data on a screen, and then you get sluggish performance. And Keith and I are going to be talking about performance at EPPC almost next month, a month and a half's time. And yeah, so overloading screens will slow down your app and invariably you'll be causing issues for yourself. So what you want to do is keep your screens very slimline. And another thing that I did with the overloading screens is I had a tabbed interface. So I thought that's fine. You just click on the tab and then you show and hide some new data, some new information. But the problem with that is that that's going to hurt a screen reader because the screen reader will be struggling to understand what information is on the screen and what's not on the screen and to know where the focus should be. So my advice with that is if you're using a tabbed interface, use a separate screen for each tab. So another thing I wanted to talk about is passing records between screens. I thought that it made sense. I have a record. I will pass that record as an update context, so a local variable or local collection, through to the next screen so that it could use it. Because I only wanted it on, say, those 2 screens or 3 screens. I didn't want it throughout my 20-screen app or whatever it was. But there are issues with that as well. And the issues are fortunately less now, but they do still exist to a certain degree. So one of the things, and I'll just explain this part rather than demonstrate it, is you imagine you have a gallery, and in that gallery, you're accessing multiple columns for those records. What will happen is if you then pass one of those records through to another screen, it will then need to know what that other screen wants from those records. I can actually give you a demo of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to get some data. So we've got an accounts table. We're looking up Microsoft's account and we're storing it to a local variable. So if I do that, then we get my name in here because I've pulled it through. So the record is the account for Microsoft. We're looking at the primary contact, which I've set to myself, and my full name. That's all well and good. And then when we pass that through to the other screen, all we're doing is navigating to the other screen and passing that record. So I've got it as a lookup there, but we can also just pass through the record that we've got existing as well at the moment. So if I pass that through, we can then see that we've got that record here. Now, one of the issues I had, because things have changed with explicit column selection, it's something to look up if you don't know much about that. But basically, let's say that we wanted to change that. We don't want the primary contact, say we want the location of the primary contact. Then it comes back with blank. And if we go and look at our table, and we're looking at my record here, we look at location, it does actually have something in there. So why do we not have a location here? And you could spend ages trying to debug it. Like, why is this information not coming through? And this is because of explicit column selection. So basically, we didn't previously tell Power Apps or Power Apps Studio that we wanted that. So it doesn't know that we wanted it. And when it asked Dataverse for the record, it didn't ask for that part of it. So if we go back to this and we do get data, and then we pass the record again, now it has it, because now it knows that you wanted that. So that's one of the issues that you can come across, is if you're passing these records around, they might lose the context, they might lose the data that they should have. So rather than doing that, we can just pass through the GUID, and then we can load that record on this screen. So in the onVisible, we can just load the record. We know that we're isolating our data, so it's part of the solid principles. For anyone who's done Sharon Astrakhan's Architects Accelerator, it goes into these details, and he teaches you how to learn about these concepts and to isolate what you're working on. So yeah, if I go back to the gallery example from here, if we're accessing, say, 50 columns for this particular record, and we're passing that record from the gallery here, every item in that gallery we're going to be requesting 50 columns for. So again, it's going to help your performance if you don't do that. So let's go back to here. And the other thing that I didn't do is didn't test my data structure. So for one of the apps that I was working on, I had a very complex data structure, and I just built the app. So I built my data structure, I built the app, and then I realized, well, the data structure isn't quite right. I was thinking about it from a SQL perspective, from a Dataverse perspective. It doesn't work quite in the same way. I also didn't fully understand the business process. I made a lot of mistakes there. So instead of just building something, it's a good idea to test your data structure. And that's easier than ever before because of this new data experience that we've got in Power Apps. Another thing that I didn't bear in mind for the first big apps is that I didn't plan the security properly. I just started building it. And of course, if you've got security roles and you've got different permissions across your tables, that's something you really should plan out, and you should build it into your app from the start. And of course, build it into the data layer. Don't start building all of your security in your Canvas app and then realizing that people can access it through Dataverse and get to data that they shouldn't be able to get to. And because we don't have too much time, the final thing I'm just going to mention is keeping up with. So what should you keep up with during a project? And these are things that I didn't keep up with in various projects. So as I mentioned, accessible labels are something that you always need to keep up with updating. It's really, really important. Security, vital. Just keep up with that throughout building your app. Always know what's going on with security. naming your controls. The next developer is going to want your head on a plate if you do not update your controls. So name your controls appropriately. Error handling is another big thing. Now, you might think that it's not important all over the app, which is understandable. There are some places where maybe it's not worth implementing error handling, especially if you're on a tight budget, but there are areas where you should implement error handling. If you're interacting with a database, you really need some error handling in there. The last thing that you want is your app goes live and then there's a bug with it and you spend far too long debugging it because you haven't got the error handling. And finally, the one thing that I always find so much of a pain is documentation. And I've found it a struggle throughout my entire Power Apps career, I guess. But keeping documentation up to date saves you so many headaches in the long run. So that's documentation of all kinds, keeping an up-to-date ERD and everything else, all of the design documents. And yeah, that's my whistle-stop tour of mistakes that I've made and hopefully trying to help you to not make those mistakes.
Thank you very much, Charles. That was awesome, always very insightful. So that concludes our kind of chaotic evening of speakers. Yeah, I hope you've all found that as enjoyable as I have, and yeah, it's been a fantastic event actually. So just a couple of things to mention before we close the call. Firstly, just if you've got any event feedback or questions, please reach out to either myself, Rani, Charlie, or Stuart. We'll gladly take any feedback as ways to improve the user group. Next up, again, just want to thank the sponsors, DAP365 and DibPats for making this happen. Without them, we can't run these events. So massive thank you to them. Massive thank you to all the speakers. So Ben, Sean, Sarah, Simon, Brian, Bülent, Sharon, and Charles. I think I've got everyone there. Massive thank you to all of you for coming along to this. It's been fantastic having you. Next thing, call for speakers. If you're a seasoned speaker or you're new to speaking, you fancy speaking at an event, please reach out. Be more than happy to take you on that journey and get you speaking at a SPUG event, either in person or virtually. So do reach out. And lastly, do just keep an eye on LinkedIn and other socials for our next event as well. Coming up, we've got some really interesting, exciting things happening, so do keep an eye on that. So yeah, thank you very much for attending. Anna, you've got a question?
Yes, is the next one online or in person?
It will be in person.
Already? Do you already know?
It will be in person, but yeah, we're unsure of dates at the minute, but do keep an eye on socials. We've got some exciting things in the works on that, so just keep an eye on that.
Do you still have any speaker slots for the next one?
If you want to speak, reach out. We'll see what we've got. I can't remember what the lineup looks like at the minute. My head is kind of toast at the minute.
No worries. Will do. Thanks, Josh.
Any other questions from anyone before we close the call? No, silence is golden. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great evening, and we'll catch you at the next one. Speak to you later.
Thanks everyone.
Brilliant
session.
Thanks everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.